Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is Richie Schneiderite. Richie, a really jam-packed weekend of Rutgers football news. We obviously had a game on Friday night, nationally broadcast game on FS1. Total stinker. We lost. We were up 13-0. We ended up losing 14-13, and that resulted in a pretty big shakeup amongst the coaching staff. Shiano said last night this is the first time he's ever done that, where he's fired a coach mid-season. But we're going to get into all that. But first, this podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. It's always the fastest and easiest way to make all your bets on all your favorite sports, including Major League Baseball, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. You could head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 100% welcome bonus. That's up from the 50% welcome bonus they were previously offering on your first deposit. Make sure you use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat that deal right there. I actually hit on the Giants halftime money line bet. That's a big win on that one, so that was nice. But we're also sponsored by Adam Goldman. Basically, like, if you don't want to be like Sean Gleeson, you kind of just don't like what you're doing and you want to change things up a little bit. Adam's the guy to call. He's are you like if you're trying to change your career completely and want to diversify a little bit, he's the franchise coach. He'll set you up and get you started with any franchise you want, really, for the most part. You could start your own Dunkin' Donuts, your own McDonald's, your own not your own coaching service, because I don't know if that's how that works there, but he gets a free consultation process. Adam's a Jersey guy, Watchung Hills native, Scarlet Night fan, and Night Report member. So if you're interested in changing up your career, give him a call at 844-800-3726.
All right, so let's talk about the game first. I thought we had a fantastic start to the game, where that first drive, the offense was humming. The first few drives, even, we had probably our most success passing in the intermediate to deep passing game since Wagner. We had like 3 or 4. We had, I think, 4 completions of over 25 yards in that first quarter. 3 of them by Noah, the other by Evan Simon. We scored on the opening possession. We went up 7-0. The defense got a quick stop after that. But I feel like, and I don't know if this is because Nebraska made adjustments or if we got conservative, but the offense just totally looked like it changed course over the last probably quarter, like the last half of the second quarter and in the second half. We just were so conservative. We got nothing moving on offense. That's kind of my read on it. Richie, what did you see on Friday, and why do you think ultimately we ended up losing that game?
Yeah, so it's weird. The passing game was working really well, and I don't think a lot of people saw that one coming, because Nebraska's, what do you call it, their weak point, I guess, would be their running defense, and Rutgers was just passing the ball over the field. It was kind of weird. We saw Noah Vedral come back. He looks pretty healthy. Threw a couple balls down the field. He hit Sean Ryan on one really nice one in the first drive, and then things just got really conservative. Like you said, like even they got that first drive down. I think it was 6 plays, 75 yards, something like that, touchdown quick. I'm like, holy shit, this team's going to score a lot today, it looks like. And then all of a sudden, It's like block punt, and then they're in the red zone again, and it's like, wow, they might go up 14-0 real quick. And for some reason, I still don't understand to this day, or to this minute, why he didn't put Sam Brown in. Sam Brown was after the block punt. Like, Sam Brown was dominating for the most part. He's your best running back by far. I don't think there's a question about it anymore. And they just didn't put him in the red zone, and it's like, what the hell's going on? Instead, they're running Johnny Langan package, they're doing this, they're doing that. They're trying to get too creative. And I think that was Sean Gleeson's biggest issue at Rutgers, is he thought he could reinvent the wheel. Like, it's not, like, you don't have to go super complicated. Run a simplistic offense, and overall, it was just so ugly. I don't understand how you score, again, 1 offensive touchdown for just about every game so far. I think it's like down to 1. It was 1.25 offensive touchdowns per game, not including Wagner. Now it's down to, I don't even know what the numbers are, but it's low. It was ugly. It was just a brutal game, and they just should not have lost. So many points left on the board. The Evan Simon sack right before halftime put him out of field goal range. They still made an attempt, and McAtamney, like, give him credit. He was very close, but if they didn't get that sack, then he probably would have hit it. Then the whole game
that's a
changes.
58-yard attempt that goes from a 49-yarder to a 58-yarder.
And then you're right there. You're 16-14. You probably win the game. Or maybe they didn't even score again. Who knows? But it was brutal. You got to credit to the defense, though. They played their hearts out. They played phenomenal. They're on the field for, 70% of the game, if not more. That late touchdown kind of screwed them a little bit. But overall, it was such a bad collapse from Rutgers. And we've seen this happen too many times over and over again. Like, it's just like at the point where, unless you have like a 21-point lead, I don't even know if that's safe when watching these games. Like, obviously the offense struggled, and some news broke, and Gleeson's gone, and here we are. It's going to be an interesting ride for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so I want to say that after they didn't score a touchdown on the blocked punt, like, first of all, Ciano covered this. It's a drill that I believe that they probably do pretty regularly, the scoop and score drill, where you're taught you gotta field the ball cleanly, and then you gotta, as a team, you gotta kind of bowling ball them into the end zone. And two guys kind of messed it up. I think Parker Day was the guy who ended up falling on it. But first and goal from the 9-yard line, you run Johnny Langan right into the back of your offensive lineman. Then you do a handoff, you set up a 3rd and 9 with Noah rolling out. So you're cutting off half the field by rolling out to the right sideline, and then he just throws it out of bounds. So you have 3 points there, and it just felt that this team couldn't move the ball. We got the ball several times in the second half, right around midfield, and you just knew that they weren't going to get a first down. They're not going to get significant yardage to get us into field goal range. The penalties fucking killed us this weekend. From
most penalized team in most penalized special teams too in the country.
Like, you had that play from Sam Brown where he had like a 21-yard run that was either a touchdown or getting first and goal at the 1. That's brought back on a penalty. So it's set up, instead of first and goal from the 1, you got 2nd and 20 from like the 35. That's a backbreaker. The Kesson Abraham penalty on 3rd and 8 when they got a 2-yard gain, throwing him out of bounds. That's the kind of guy. And I mean, we've talked about how Kess kind of has had a down season. But you need to have your composure in moments like that as a veteran leader on the team. So that was unfortunate. Just like so many critical mistakes. And this isn't just on the players. What the hell happened with the coaching staff on that 3rd down? We're calling timeouts way too early, in my opinion. We're starting to call timeouts in the 4th quarter at like 5 minutes. We get it to 3rd down. You got 1 timeout left. We use a 2nd timeout to get a substitution in because they messed up the substitutions. So now you're out of all your timeouts. It's 3rd down, and then the Kesson Abraham play happens. So it's just everybody was frazzled, it seems, and I don't know if it's kind of everybody on the team is kind of knowing the offense is holding them back, and so the frustrations are building, which causes problems, which causes mental mistakes. But the whole team right now is off kilter, and they really need to take this bye week to get themselves back focused in on what they should be doing, which is Ciano preaches the chop, but nobody's abiding by the chop right now. It's insane. Like, everybody's making mistakes from the top level all the way down to the special teams gunner. It's so hard to watch Rutgers play right now.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with just about everything. Starting from the Johnny Langan thing, it's like, stop running him. He's just running straight into the line. It doesn't work against good teams, or not even mediocre teams. It works against, like, the SCS, like, Wagner teams and, like, the Temples of the world. It's not working against Nebraska.
Johnny Langan runs are
Iowa.
averaging under 1 yard per carry against Big Ten opponents this year.
It's disgusting. He ran 3 times against Iowa, it says, for -1 yard. It's like, it just doesn't work. Like, stop it. And he's a pretty damn good tight end. Throw it to him once in a while. I know they attempted to, and they had
a critical drop in that game.
That was pretty bad. But he did have that one catch too. That went for, like, I think 20 yards or something like that.
Yep.
It's just, the offense is just so putrid. It's disgusting. It's anemic. It's any word that just means bad. It's bad. Like, that's why he's gone. That's why Sean Gleeson's gone. We kind of thought this might happen towards the end of the season, but it happened obviously a lot earlier. And like you said, this is the first time that Greg's ever fired a coach mid-season, and now we're rocking with nuns and seeing how that goes, I guess.
Yeah, so I want to kind of talk about the implications of that. So Greg's been a head coach for a long time. He's never fired a coach mid-season. typically what you see with Greg is he goes and even if he's not happy with a guy, he'll not fire him, but he'll just like wait for him to get another job. Like you saw that with Rob Smith last year. Defensive coordinator, he was terrible.
Whoa. Duke hired him away from Rutgers.
Yeah. If you ask a Duke fan, they hired him away. But he waited until Rob got a new job to not renew his contract and let him go. You see him fire Sean Gleeson. So what does that mean? So Sean Gleeson was making over $1 million a year to be our offensive coordinator. He was one of the top 20 paid coordinators in football, I believe, or if not top 20 coordinators, top 20 offensive coordinators. It was one of the few big boy hires Rutgers has in terms of shelling out money. Mm-hmm. And you see him fired mid-season with another year left on his deal. So this is a guy who's still owed $1 million for next season and $500,000 for this season. So that's $1.5 million just burned. Now, we're playing big boy football with this kind of move. Not only from Schiano making that decision, because it sounds like he actually had a lot of affection for Sean, and he actually liked him a lot, but also with that money. Now, that money could have come from a donor. That money could have come from, we're expecting to make $80 million a year in TV right deals, so we have the excess funds. But this is showing that Schiano's not going to put up with units not performing moving forward. And I think that's a big difference from his first time around, where he would just kind of like really let guys. He gave guys every single chance as coaches to turn things around. Not necessarily with players. That was part of his problem. Was he was pulling guys too quick as players and letting guys kind of linger too long as coaches. But then we've given him 2.5 years. We've seen pretty awful results from the offense last season and a half. We're going to have a ton of money to offer to the next guy that potentially is the offensive coordinator. So being in the Big Ten is a big bonus. Showing patience with coaches is a big bonus. And having money is a big bonus. Now, saying all those things, what do you expect the staff, or what do you expect Schiano to look for in his next offensive coordinator?
Someone that can score points. I mean that, it sounds so simple, but like it's kind of insane that like we're at this point where Rutgers is once again one of the worst offenses in the country. Maybe Nuns is going to get a shot. He kind of mentioned it in his press conference yesterday. Like this is kind of his interview process, I guess. Mm-hmm. Do I expect him to get the job? I think it's going to take a hell of a turnaround for this offense in order for him to get the job. I think he still gets retained. Like Nuns is still a pretty good coach, whether that be tight ends, running backs, et cetera, et cetera. I think you'll see some shifting around the offensive coaching staff this offseason in general. Whether that be Augie, maybe move. I guess Augie just moved the offensive line. Ulrich was kind of Gleason's boys, so I wouldn't be shocked if he got the boot as well, and they'd probably go somewhere else for the running backs. Maybe Nuns.
That was what I was speculating last night on the Twitter space too.
Maybe Nuns goes back to running backs. He has coached it before. He's coached, I think, just about everything but wide receivers at this point. So that's a possibility. Maybe you go get someone else that you know that you're familiar with. Savon Huggins, potentially, maybe comes back to Rutgers. But that's like deep speculation down the line. In terms of offensive coordinator, it's got to be someone that can train quarterbacks at the end of the day.
Yep.
That's the big thing. I know everyone wants their own quarterback coach. It's not realistic. It's not how it works. Maybe some programs, but there's a very few and far in between, have a quarterback coach dedicated strictly to quarterbacks and nothing else. But this is going to be an OC, that guy that also coaches quarterbacks for the most part, in my opinion. Now, where do you go? There's a ton of options out there. There's NFL guys. There's college guys. There's a lot of guys with connections to Schiano, a lot of New Jersey connections. I think first and foremost, you go down to North Carolina and you give a call to Phil Longo. The guy is one of the best offensive coordinators in the country. He obviously wanted the job. I think I don't know if we reported it or someone else did. I forget who got it first, but this was a couple of years ago. He wanted the Rutgers job really bad. He was very interested in it. He never got the interview. We didn't get any further than that. But he is doing great for UNC. In the past 3 or 4 seasons, he's averaged over 35 points a game, or 33 points per game. And this season alone, they're averaging 42 a game. Like that's insane numbers. Imagine that, and inside of SHI Stadium, an offense that's throwing the ball that much and actually scoring that much. Like, it'd be insane.
I do want to talk. I want to dive into Phil Longo's resume. So he's been the UNC offensive coordinator since 2019. Before that, he was the offensive coordinator for Ole Miss. At Ole Miss, his first season there, they had Shea Patterson and Jordan Teamu. Shea Patterson got hurt midway through the season. In 7 games, he put up 2,300 yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, along with 1 touchdown rushing. Tiamu comes in. He picks up just where Shea Patterson left off. He has 1,700 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 4 touchdowns on the ground. So he's shown the ability at Ole Miss to start multiple quarterbacks in the same season, get production. And mind you, they had they had an NFL who's who of wide receivers that year, and A.J. Brown, Van Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Dawson Knox. But then if you look at what he did at North Carolina, starting in 2019 with a true freshman quarterback in Sam Howell. Sam Howell put up 3,600 yards, 38 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions as a true freshman. Now,
I don't even know what the last time a Rutgers quarterback has touched those numbers.
Now, Sam Howell was a top 150 recruit, so he had some pedigree behind him. But this is a quarterback coach who designed an offense around multiple quarterbacks and had a ton of success. And Sam Howell obviously was a great quarterback for them for 3 years. And then what did he do this year? True freshman quarterback Drake May. Through 6 games, he's passing for almost 78% completion percentage, 1,900 yards, passing, 21 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and another 300 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. So Phil Longo has shown that he can take any kind of quarterback and obviously all these guys are talented, but they're different styles, they're different guys. You have to kind of design different ways to succeed under each player, and he's shown the ability to do that at multiple stops under multiple quarterbacks. So he's definitely the number 1 choice in my eyes.
I think he has to be. He's only making. I know it sounds like people are always going to be like, "Oh, he's making less than $1 million. We could pay $1 million." It's like, no, New Jersey still the taxes are ridiculous. He's making $850 right now at UNC. I think if you gave him like 1.2, I think he might actually consider it. Now, mind you, UNC is actually investing in football a little bit with Mac Brown and all that. It's actually worked out for them pretty well so far. I wouldn't be shocked if they came back with a very close, if not similar, offer. So this might take a lot of money, and it's gonna be an interesting one because I feel like he might be the perfect fit. It's just a matter of it's gonna come down to the dollar sign. Will he pick up and leave and go back home to New Jersey? He is a New Jersey native from Bayville. He was a Parsippany Hills high school coach at one point, and I don't think he's really been back since. William Patterson, he coached that for a little bit in 01. But other than that, LaSalle, I guess PA is really not that far, but then Minnesota, Southern Illinois, Youngstown State, PA again, Slippery Rock, Sam Houston, Ole Miss, and UNC. So he hasn't really been home. I'm trying to figure out if he still has a house in Jersey or not. I guess obviously that doesn't play a huge factor because if you're making that much money, you can try to just go buy something tomorrow. But I think he's got to be candidate number 1. Now, after that is where it gets a little bit interesting. There's so many different routes you can go. There's the NFL route with guys like Pittsburgh quarterback coach Mike Sullivan, who was on staff, who was Shiano's OC in Tampa for 2 years, which was kind of interesting because now he's got NFL experience. He's got NFL experience under his belt. He's got college experience, spending a lot of time at Army for the most part, and he's obviously developing quarterbacks pretty well. I mean, mind you, this is only Kenny Pickett's first year with the Steelers. But he also is accredited a lot with Eli Manning's success with the Giants when he was QB coach there. He's a New Jersey native as well. I think he's one you got to look into. And then Matt Rule just got fired today. Joe Daly is one I would keep a really close eye on. He's a Freehold guy, Freehold New Jersey native. Coached at BC for a couple of years. Ran some pretty prolific offenses for Liberty from 2014 to 2018. A couple seasons where they averaged over 30 points per game. He's also credited at BC for developing Zay Flowers, the guy who put up some serious yardage last year, and then I think he was all ACC first team or something like that. I think he'd come back to college in a heartbeat because, well, number one, it doesn't seem like he'll have a job for much longer. Mind you, could an NFL team pick him up? Yeah, probably. But he's on top of all of this. I didn't even mention it. He's a pretty damn good recruiter. He got Joseph Griffin, a 4-star, to go to Boston College. It's not easy to recruit up there. I can tell you that for a fact. It is tough. So I mean, this would kind of be like a Harris Simiak-esque type move, where it's a really good recruiter, a really good coach, but he's maybe not the biggest name on the board for Rutgers. But you take him, and I would give him a shot. I mean, he hasn't been an OC since 2019 when he was at New Mexico, mind you, but he's got some NFL experience under his belt. He's ran some pretty good offenses, like I said, and he's a St. Peter's Prep alum. I didn't even mention that one. And you can get back in there. That's a program that produces each and every year. So I think those would be probably the 3 names I'd keep the closest eye on, but there's obviously a bunch more out there. You could probably just throw a bunch of shit at a wall and be like, oh, that guy's a New Jersey native, maybe him. That guy's coached at Rutgers once, maybe him. But I don't know. It's going to be someone I think that's never been at Rutgers before, if I had to guess.
So I have an off-the-wall candidate for you, and I know I kind of touched on this in a post I made. If you look at what Western Kentucky did last year, they hired the Houston Baptist offensive coordinator who brought with him Bailey Zappi, who was the number 1 quarterback rated on PFF last year, and he put up like all-time numbers at Western Kentucky. I think he set the single-season passing record. He brought also with him 2 1,000-yard receivers to Western Kentucky. So in that mold this year, I think the best fit is Chris Smith, who's the offensive coordinator at Holy Cross. So Holy Cross's quarterback is Matt Saluka. He's originally from Long Island. He spent a year at Petty. He never lost a game as a starter in high school. He goes to Holy Cross. He's got them undefeated this year at 6-0. I think they won their first FCS playoff game last year under Matt Saluka. They went 10-3. Saluka is a true dual threat. This season, he's got 1,400 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, 424 yards on the ground, and 6 touchdowns rushing. This dude's electric. I think he'd fit perfectly with a modern spread offense because he's a true dual threat. He doesn't have the strongest arm, but this is the kind of guy that if you're looking for an off-the-wall candidate, if you're looking for something that could bring dudes along with him, Saluka's got 2 more years of eligibility, and this is a proven winner. I think he's a stud quarterback. He's PFF's number 1 overall quarterback across all levels. So this is the kind of move I think if you're looking for a talent infusion as well, maybe something you take a look into.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I didn't even think about that. Going that low of a level. I know people are going to be like, oh, Patriot League, Big Ten, it's completely different. But at the end of the day, offense is offense. And they did beat Buffalo this year, so, I mean, that's a pretty big win. They're kicking the shit out of teams. They beat Bucknell 57-0. Like, it's not like they're not scoring.
They've won an FBS game. They've beaten an FBS team 2 straight seasons. So last year, I believe they beat UConn at UConn. Then this season, they beat Buffalo at Buffalo. So this is a legit team.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like they have some serious offense, too. And, I mean, if you can get a quarterback to go with it, it's huge. I mean, especially because Rutgers' quarterback situation's been, I don't even know what you want to call it, not good.
Yeah.
So there's other names out there, too. I know a lot of, the coaches. We interviewed the high school coaches, if you haven't seen already. A lot of them mentioned Brendan Marion, who's the pass game coordinator over at Texas. Now, why him? He's a Western PA guy. He was part of the Pitt staff a year ago. And obviously that Pitt staff had one of the best offenses in the country with Jordan Addison dominating, Kenny Pickett, ACC champs and all that. But he's interesting because Western PA is producing more talent than most areas in the Northeast. And the fact that a lot of coaches are mentioning him kind of makes me look into him a little more. There's other guys out there, like maybe Ben McDaniels wants to return to the Big Ten. John Garrett, the former Lafayette head coach, was with Schiano down at Tampa as the pass game coordinator. There's so many names out there. It's kind of like I said, these hot boards are tough because no one really knows. And honestly, at the end of the day, from what I'm being told, is that Schiano hasn't even thought about this yet. He's focused on the season. He's going to figure it out after the year. Let's try to get a couple more wins and then go from there. Now, this offense under Nuns is what's going to be interesting to me.
Yeah. So Nuns obviously was the offensive coordinator / head coach, I believe, when Ash got fired and also John McNulty got fired in 2019. I think they went 1-6 when he was the head coach, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
He beat Liberty, and then he lost all the other games. So I don't really think it's fair to judge his coaching ability based on that season because it was one of Rutgers' worst teams in recent memory, and he was just kind of making do with what he had. But everybody speaks so highly of Nuns in terms of how smart of a coach he is and how innovative he is, how good he is with quarterbacks. So do you think they're going to come out with an entirely different approach to offense for these last 7 games or these last 6 games under Nuns?
Entirely different? I'll say no right away. Just looking back at the stats from when he was OC, you can't really judge him at all based on that, like you said. He also had Michael Carter quit at quarterback. He had Art Schakowsky kind of quit, or red shirt, whatever you want to call it. He had Raheem Blackshear straight up quit, literally left the team completely. So, I mean, you lost your starting running back, you started your top 2 quarterbacks, and then it's hey, Johnny Langan, I know, you're a redshirt freshman or whatever the hell he was at the time. You're our starting quarterback, and we have no other options, so don't get hurt. So he made it work, though. I mean, he had put up 270 rushing yards against a pretty good Liberty team in 2019 that had Antonio Gandy Golden, if you remember him. I think he put up 100-something yards on Rutgers. It wasn't a bad Liberty team, and at the end of the day, he got his guys to fight, and I think that's kind of what Schiano's kind of looking for. It seems like, from what we're hearing, is that the locker room was kind of lost with Sean Gleeson. It sounds like guys were just starting to question him and question his offensive philosophies, and rightfully so. I mean, you guys have one touchdown a game. Like, it's disgusting. And you're in the red zone part of the time, and you're still not scoring.
And these guys know who the best players are. They're not stupid. They all practice with one another. Like, why is Sam Brown getting, like, a cap at, like, 13 to 15 carries a game when he's the only guy in the backfield who's able to make a guy miss, to shed a tackle, to extend plays? Like, that was embarrassing. It's really bad, but I think Nuns is going to get some fight out of these guys now. What kind of offense is he going to run? I think it's going to be super simplistic. I don't think he's going to go crazy. Again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's nothing that you have to get crazy and overthink, and when you start overthinking, it causes problems. And that's what kind of was Sean Gleason's downfall. So now, I think Nuns is going to be a little bit more simple. I think you'll see a couple, like, RPOs and stuff like that as well. Like, we kind of, for the most part, similar to what we've seen, but minus all the, like, the fancy shit. Like, you don't need to go, like, doing a wildcat here, wildcat there. You don't need to put Johnny Lankin and line him up and be like, hey, run straight. Like, it's, no. I think, I don't know, who's the quarterback? That's going to be the question. Because, obviously, Gavin Wimstad's really not 100%. Maybe this bye week he'll get 100%. I think first and foremost you establish a quarterback, and I think Vedral kind of proved himself. If healthy, he's got to be QB1. I think there was no question about that before the season, but then the injury kind of derailed a couple things here and there. But I think you pick a quarterback, whether it be Vedral, whether it be Wimstad. I don't think you can pick Simon. I don't think he's trustworthy at the moment. But I think you pick one of those two and you ride with him. You get a little momentum going with the quarterbacks. You've seen everyone on social media like criticizing the fact that they keep rotating in and out. Gio Ricchino the other day during the game was like, you'll never establish a rhythm as a quarterback. Like, it's impossible when you're going, hey, 2 snaps here, hey, 2 snaps that guy, hey, 2 snaps this guy. Like, no, it's not going to work. Stop getting fancy, stop getting cute, and just play the game. I think it's going to be a simple offense. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. I think they're just going to run. Now people are going to be like, oh, it's going to be the Bergen Catholic offense. No, it's not going to be that. But it will be like very simplistic. And I think that's what they need. I think that's kind of what has to happen. These receivers aren't getting open. Make it a lot more simpler concepts, simpler routes, and just play the game. Maybe run a halfback screen once in a while. Like, it's just it's insane. I think just making teams play a little left-handed and not being so predictable in your play calling is going to be just a massive win for Rutgers, because based on just formation usage alone, we were just and yard and distance alone. Like, if it was first down, we're running it. If Johnny Langan or Josh Youngblood's in the backfield, we're running it. It's just so obvious what we're doing almost at all times. So if we just are even a little bit unpredictable, if we just run play action on 20% of our dropbacks, like, that will make everything so much easier for this offense. We've just been doing things unnecessarily difficult all season, and then probably internally blaming personnel when you've seen this all over the country where coaches are able to scheme up spacing, scheme up guys open. It's not as hard as our coaches are making it right now, especially Sean Gleeson, and I just hope that we can simplify things like you're saying, but also do things that make sense.
Yeah, it's insane that they can't just move the ball really at all whatsoever. It's I don't even know what to say. Like, the offense is just so boring and they're overdoing everything. It's just it's crazy to me that, like, Sean Gleeson, who's apparently this great X's and O's guy, didn't see this coming from a long ways away. But it is what it is. They got Nuns running the show now. We'll see what happens. I wouldn't judge him too much based off game one. I know a lot of people are going to see that. Rutgers is probably going to, knock on wood, should beat Indiana. Indiana's a really bad team, so I'm thinking that people might see that game and think, like, oh my God, we're the best offense in the world. Like, let's relax. Like, it's still Indiana. I think you have to judge them based on the first 3 games. Like, Who is it? Minnesota after that. That's a good litmus test type thing to see how Nuns is as the OC. Michigan's going to be tough, and then the rest of the way, it's going to be tough sailing. But it's definitely not an easy job. I think Nuns is going to be up for it, and we'll see what this offense can do. Maybe start Sam Brown. That might help. That's a good start.
And it's kind of crazy to think of how far Gleeson has fallen. Do you remember after his first year, there was speculation that, like, oh, we have such a great coach, the Giants might want him as their offensive coordinator. He wouldn't leave for anywhere else other than maybe the Giants. And now, after 2 years, we were kind of, everybody was kind of on the fence about him. And then after this season, where could he get an offensive coordinator job right now?
I don't know. Interestingly enough, after that first year, I had a couple guys reach out to me. I know Georgia Tech was going to make a serious run at him. And it was interesting because then all of a sudden, like, we reported there was a school after him on the boards. And then all of a sudden he gets an extension, and it's like, interesting. Maybe he did get that offer after all. But not that would have worked out because they fired their head coach anyway. But if I'm Sean Gleeson, I don't know. Like, maybe you reach out to Mike Gundy and see, like, hey, like, you got a spot on staff for me? Maybe not as the OC, maybe as, like, a QB coach. Because in the end of the day, he has been a pretty good recruiter of quarterbacks when he does recruit quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Weird that you're not recruiting a quarterback in 2022 or 2023, but for Rutgers. But, I mean, you got Shane Illingsworth at Oklahoma State. That's a 4-star. You got Gavin Wimsatt to go to Rutgers. I don't think anyone saw that one coming. And he got Brevin White to choose Princeton over Alabama at one point. Like, he's a good recruiter, it seems like, but for some reason they're like, we're just going to punt 2022 since we got Gavin to reclass. Yeah, we're going to punt 2023 as well. And it's like, what do you mean you're punting 2022 and 23? Like, you have 2 quarterbacks next year on scholarship.
I do want to talk about that a little bit. So we took 1 quarterback of the last 3 recruiting classes currently, and that's Gavin. Mm-hmm. Is that like a Gleeson-specific position? Like, he's in charge of quarterbacks, how many we should have, et cetera? Like, I know, obviously, Shiano oversees everything, but that is one of the most puzzling things I can remember when following recruiting is that you're only going to take 1 quarterback in 3 classes. Like, we're only going to have 2 scholarship guys after this season. What are they thinking?
It makes no sense. And, like, we've heard, like, they're obviously offered a couple different quarterbacks. They offered the Tucker McDonald kid who's, I think, Connecticut native or something like that. They offered...
but didn't they sour on him pretty quickly?
Yeah, that's the word of... That's what the word is coming out of Rutgers. I don't know how much I believe that. I know, obviously, they should be able to flip a kid from UConn. The UNC Charlotte kid came on an official visit, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, we don't want him anymore. And it's like, come on, like, just take a quarterback at this point. It doesn't matter. We posted a couple in the war room this past weekend. A couple of random guys, which I don't even think any of them were scholarship worthy for Rutgers, in my opinion. But Gleason's, like, reaching out to their coaches, doing a lot of, like, homework on them and stuff, and it's just, like, it's very confusing to me because you went from, like, this nonstop great recruiter of quarterbacks to recruiting, what, a bunch of nobodies? And it's, like, what happened over the past, like, year or two? Like, I know the offense has been bad, but you still, like, you're known as this great recruiter. You should be able to land somebody. It doesn't even matter if you just pick a body at this point because, at the end of the day, the guy's probably backing up Wimsatt or Simon over the next couple of years anyway, so... to get a body at this point and get someone in there because you cannot. People are like, Alabama has 3 scholarship quarterbacks. It's Alabama. It's completely different. You can't have Rutgers, but you don't have a starting quarterback to start with. You need bodies. And then, like this year, for example, you saw Vedral go down. You saw Wimsatt go down. They're rocking with 1 scholarship quarterback at times, and it's not a good scholarship quarterback at times. Like it's rough. Like you gotta add bodies. Me and Alex have talked about it on the boards. Alex is more adamant about this than me. But you need a quarterback every single cycle. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Ohio State, you're Alabama. Alabama's taking 2 this cycle. Yeah, like it's insane. You need a quarterback. So I don't know.
So
rant over.
If you're setting the odds as to what the odds are that Rutgers takes a quarterback in the transfer portal this offseason, what are you setting the odds at? Is this a minus 400 favorite to take a quarterback in the portal, or you think it's way lower than that?
I think it's way lower than that. I think they take a high school quarterback before anything. If you're a portal guy, you look at Rutgers' offense, maybe the only way I could see it happening is if, like, kind of like what you mentioned before with the Holy Cross situation. It would have to be an OC that already has a quarterback established somewhere, and it's like, all right, I'm going to bring him with me. That's the one scenario I can see with the transfer. But at the end of the day, like, people are like, yeah, just hit the transfer portal for 2 wide receivers, 2 O-linemen, a quarterback, a running back, a backup running back. And it's like, no, like, kids are transferring to get playing time. They're not going, like, to just transfer just because, I did pretty good at Baylor, but I'm from the Northeast, so I'm going to go to Rutgers all of a sudden. Like, no, that's not how it works. People are going to look at the roster. They're going to see Wimsatt there. They're going to assume Wimsatt's probably the starter for the foreseeable future. He still has 3 years of eligibility left. And it's going to be tough to get someone. And then you look at the offense that they've ran over the past couple seasons. If you're a quarterback, you're probably not... Like, if you're any name quarterback, you're probably looking at that offense and being like, shit, I don't want to go there. I'm not throwing for 15 points a game, 20 points a game, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy to find a transfer portal quarterback, and that's why I think you have to go high school here. Get a guy that has some pretty solid potential. Maybe he's not a starter for you ever on the Banks, but at the same time, this could be a guy that has a ton of potential. Your new OC would have to probably pick him, and that's where it gets a little dicey because the season ends end of November. And you're going to have 2 weeks, 3 weeks to sign a quarterback, or you wait till February and try to get a high school kid then. Maybe there's a late bloomer somewhere. I know the Ocean Township kid that's committed to some Tyler Douglas, I think is his name, committed to Temple. He's one I keep a close eye on. And then also, we don't even know what the offense is going to look like next year. Is it spread? Are they going to go back to pro style and resort back to that? I hope not, because that's miserable to watch.
Yep.
It's just not working in today's day and age, unless you're Alabama or any of the other big names that have the big boys up front. But I think you want to stay. You probably just you wait till the OC's picked. Once that new OC's picked, then you go from there and kind of figure out what you want to do with the quarterback situation. Who knows if Evan Simon even stays or Gavin Wimsatt? I think Gavin stays. I don't even know if Evan Simon will stay, though, to be honest, because he's got a couple quips now. Maybe he goes to a lower program and starts for the next 3 years or whatever he has left. 2 years.
Yeah, I could see it too. I mean, I can't imagine this has been a fun season for him, personally. Like, he's gotten opportunities to start, but he's gotten the shit kicked out of him pretty regularly. Yeah, he's been, a scapegoat for some of these losses when he's not really. It shouldn't necessarily be put it on. It's way more on the coaches why he's been losing these games, especially Iowa and Nebraska, than it's been on and Evan. And sometimes a fresh start's the best thing anybody could have. And that's not to say either of us have any kind of inside information about Evan leaving. But, I mean, we've seen this happen before after seasons that kind of go awry. Guys just sometimes want to start over. Were there any other offensive coordinator candidates that made a lot of sense to you? Because I think there's one to me that makes a lot of sense, and Mark Whipple. Because I think Greg probably leans more towards an established guy than a young guy. Like, not that Sean wasn't established, but there's a tendency to kind of go the opposite way with your next hire as you did your previous. And Mark Whipple, he's developed a lot of good offenses. He obviously had Pitt humming under, a Heisman candidate in Kenny Pickett. He developed a pretty good receiver, or he oversaw an offense that developed a pretty good receiver in Jordan Addison, who's now at USC. And he's making, I think, $850 this year at Nebraska. He's probably not going to be retained there. So we obviously have the money to pay him. But are there any other guys that stick out in your mind that might be good offensive coordinator candidates?
Whipple's an interesting one because of the Northeast connections. New York guy, like you said, Pittsburgh OC. Now, is he really doing much since Scott Frost has been fired? I mean, it's tough to say because it's Indiana and Rutgers, like, at the end of the day, so it's hard to judge. And he only scored, 14 points against Rutgers, so it's not like it's a world beater either. So I don't know if I would go that way personally. I'd probably go with the young up-and-comer. I mean, if you're not getting Longo, who's the dream hire, I look at Daly. I don't think Cignetti's a realistic one. Sullivan was kind of just like, he was Greg's OC. Maybe he wants to be OC again. Some of the other names on the list, like, there's Warren Regario, who's a New Jersey guy down at Wake Forest, and they run a pretty explosive offense, as we saw in the Gator Bowl last year. But I don't know if he's going to leave Clawson. They've been together since 2009 when they were both at Bowling Green. Honestly, I would probably look for like I said, an up-and-comer. The Villanova OC has been pretty good over the past couple years. Mind you, it's the FCS level, but I think that's kind of where you have to start, shopping. You have to start looking down lower, because I don't know if you're going to get any of these, huge-name hires. everyone wants the big, sexy name, but at the end of the day, like, was Harris Simiak a sexy name? No, and he's been pretty damn good. If I had to say so
he's
myself,
been excellent. I couldn't be happier with him as a defensive coordinator hire.
So maybe you go in, you find a young up and coming coordinator, guy that has a lot of experience at that lower level. Maybe I don't know how much experience the Holy Cross guy has or the Villanova guy has, but go for one of them, and maybe you have another offensive. Maybe you should redo the entire offensive staff at this point. It's a tough call. I mean, it worked for the defense clearly. Got a bunch of new faces, new names, and maybe that OC brings in a new. Another assistant coach with him, kind of like what Harris Simiak did with Heatherman. Bring someone that knows your defense already, and it makes it so much easier to transition from the old playbook to the new playbook and the schemes and etc. So maybe you do something like that. And I don't have a specific name. I'd probably reach out to Joe Daly and reach out to Phil Longo, and after that, I don't know where you really go. That's the big question mark of the day.
Yeah, I do think that we're setting our sights really high with Phil Longo, and that's just kind of like a recipe for disaster, because if you look at, like, Phil Longo was getting talked about as the next Rutgers head coach. He interviewed for the UCF job a couple years ago that ultimately went to Gus Malzahn. He's, in a position where UNC loves this guy. He's, like, one of their best, like, one of their most highly thought of coaches in general, let alone assistants. So they're going to pony up if we offer more. Taxes are better in UNC or in North Carolina. So this is really going to have to be like, I want to get back to the Northeast. I want to get back closer to my family, and we're going to have to probably pay him 1.5 realistically if we want
at least,
because he's going to have opportunities probably because at the FBS level to be a head coach, because he's shown the ability over multiple stops to take whatever he's got and turn it into a great offense. So he's probably going to get a head coaching offer after the season. So it's really tough to imagine us getting Phil Longo.
Yeah, like I said, it's the home run hire, it's the dream hire, but I don't know if that happens. I think the most realistic one on our list personally is that Joe Daly, just because Carolina just obviously fired Rule. He'll be looking for a job. Now, the question is, a lot of these guys get to the league and they kind of realize, like, hey, man, recruiting's like a grind. Like, it kind of sucks. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. And that's been the case for guys like Angelico and I know some other former Rutgers guy. Now we can't remember who. Andrew Janako, who's the quarterback's coach of the Bears, who I didn't even put on the list because, number one, no OC experience. Number two, these guys get to the league and they realize recruiting sucks. Like it's a daily grind. And Shiano says it all the time. It's a 365-day-a-year job just doing that alone. Yep. So maybe Daly, if you reach out, see if he wants to come back to college. If not, I understand. And then that's where it gets questionable. I don't really know where you go after that. Like I said, there's other names out there. There's like Ben McDaniels, who has been at Rutgers before for multiple years, worked with Shiano in Tampa. Actually, ironically, last time Rutgers had a 1,000-yard receiver was under Ben McDaniels. So, I mean...
Really?
Yeah, Leonte Carew back in 2014 with Flood. So, I mean, maybe you do that. He's also got some Big Ten experience under his belt now, too, between the Rutgers years under Flood and then working for Michigan for the past couple seasons. So, I mean, maybe you go from that. But he is an interesting name. I'd keep an eye on him. But, again, the league, once you're in the league, it's like, I don't want to go back. I don't really know where you go after that. That's maybe John Garrett, who was the Lafayette head coach and was Shiano's pass game coordinator in Tampa. He has OC experience at Lafayette and Richmond, where I think Richmond, he had a pretty damn good quarterback. I can't remember what his name was. But he also was OC of Oregon State, so it's like he has Power 5 experience. And when in that lone year where he was the OC, their QB, I'm looking at now, threw for 3,600 yards, 15 touchdowns, had a running back duo that combined for 1,500 yards alone, too. And he's got NFL experience. So, I mean, maybe you go that way. I don't think this is going to be a sexy hire. I think it's going to be like probably a name that's not on any of our lists. Like, we didn't see Harris Simiak coming. That came out of nowhere. So it might just be a name that's not on any single list, on any single hot board, and you might not like it at first, but I think end of the day you got to trust Greg, and Greg knows what he's doing, and we'll go from there and see what happens.
Yeah, a lot to kind of look through, and I'm sure names will start to leak out as the season progresses. But this is just such a fresh wound, and Greg has made it pretty clear that they're not even really thinking about that right now. And while that's true, there's no way that there hasn't been any sort of feelers put out there. Like, it's not the top of the list item, but Greg is often talked about how he always has a list. He always has guys on his mind for potential replacements. Yeah. And I'm sure that there's people inside the athletic department who are reaching out to other people about interest in the job. There's no way that's not happening at this point.
But
100%. Is it serious enough to actually like move forward? No. It's, hey, what do you think about this? Any interest? That kind of shit. I have no doubt in my mind those conversations have already happened. But
yeah, 100%. I'm sure people like are even talking to Whipple about it. And anyone that has like New Jersey connections are like, yo, that job just opened up. That's $1 million job right there. Like,
yeah.
What do you think? Like, this might just be BS like side talk, but end of the day, that's how it starts, and it's a tumbleweed effect, and it just keeps going and going, and before you know it, that guy's the OC, whoever he is. So who
absolutely.
knows?
So we covered a lot today. I know this week, I believe, is the basketball media day, correct?
Yes. So Big Ten Media Day is tomorrow, technically, but we're probably not going to get a whole lot out of that one because we have a local media day on Friday with Pike. So we'll be at practice again. We'll have a bunch of notes. I think we have a Q&A with Pike scheduled for tomorrow morning. I was going to post it this morning, but obviously a lot of stuff went down last night or yesterday afternoon. Yeah. So he does talk about the team. Interesting little tidbit from that Q&A is Antonio Chol is averaging like 55% from three-point land in practice so far, which
that's crazy.
Very, very impressive for him. He's going to play significant minutes. We'll have the Pike video after. I think we can officially put the Bronny James thing to bed because I don't know if you saw, he literally just signed a NIL endorsement with Nike. Rutgers isn't Nike, therefore I don't see that one happening. Not that like we mentioned before, it wasn't going to happen regardless, but this puts it to bed. He's done. He's gone. Now we can tag Bronny James in our videos and get a bunch more views.
That is one of the more interesting little. If there could be like a 7-minute long 30 for 30, just like the week that Rutgers seemed like they were interested in Bronny James, because like if Zags is posting it, if Zags is posting it, that info's legit. He's a good reporter. He's not pulling it out of his ass. Even if it was like their people putting it out there just to kind of get some interest building up because the NYC market's obviously a great place to play. He was never playing here as long as Rutgers was an Adidas school. Like the Jameses, for as much as they're a polarizing group, like they are very business savvy. There's no way LeBron would have let his kid come play for an Adidas school. Zero chance. There's no way Bronny was putting any sort of Adidas shoe on his foot. So it didn't make sense from the start.
Yeah. Yep, fair enough.
All right, well, this went a little long, guys, but we really appreciate you guys sticking around for the entire podcast. For Richie and I, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.